Yo folks, welcome back. So in this video I want to show you a new plugin I found last week, or actually I haven't found it, someone sent it to me and I installed it and I found it very useful. So it's a very useful plugin, that's what I want to say. It's also free, it's not open source, but it's free, so you don't have to pay anything. And it's made by a YouTuber. I watched earlier this year a video of him debunking some kind of input gain for amplifiers in digital environments. And it was very satisfying to watch. And I put the link to his YouTube channel also in the description below, and also of course to the website I'll show you here. So this is the plugin, it's called Spectrum Thief, and most of his plugins is centered around guitar players, right? And this is here, the purpose of this plugin is to actually clone the EQ curve of speaker cabinets or amplifiers, right? You send your guitar through it and then it shapes the tone or the spectrum here in a certain way, and you can just copy this curve or this EQ curve, and then you can put it in your DAW with an impulse response on it, and then you more or less have the same sound. So this is the idea of this plugin, and of course I misuse it for something completely different, or maybe something different. So it's more or less an EQ matcher with an IR generator included, right? So you record here the target curve, and then you record the source curve, and then you have here the difference as a EQ curve, and then you can export this as an IR response or IR sample, and then you can use it inside of your convolution reverb. And I made a video earlier about this kind of process, but without this plugin. I showed you this in a video with using an Dirac signal, a small little sample, sending it through an EQ and then recording it, and then you can use it kind of inside of the convolution reverb, and you more or less copied or cloned the whole curve. But here it's more a streamlined plugin, right? You just record this, record that, export IR sample, done. So it's a bit easier, but you can also, instead of exporting the IR sample, you can just leave this plugin on and just apply this kind of curve instead of using the IR sample here. So I show you this in a minute how I use it. Something that you need to know, or maybe I tell you this a bit later. So here in the background you can see some kind of track I made yesterday. It's very cheesy, very 90s atmospheric, intelligent drum and bass stuff. It's kind of a chill out for me to produce the stuff at the moment, because I don't have to think about anything like sound design. I just put here the Triton VST on it, select some sounds and play some random melodies, and then something gets out of it, right? So it's very kind of meditating way of doing my evenings. Anyway, so in the background here you can see there's a track, and on the master here, let's go to the master, I have here some EQ curves. So I have a match EQ with a very straight curve, and I use this match EQ here to copy kind of the sound of these 90s atmospheric drum and bass tunes, right? I just recorded multiple tracks I like from LTJ Bookem or whatever, it's trendy at the moment, and then I have some kind of curve from all of these tracks, get the average, and then I apply it here to my track to get kind of the same sound. And then I have, after that, I'm using the Balance 1 by Synaptic, and you can dial in here target slope and high cut, low cut, right? So it balances out the spectrum to this kind of settings here, which is very nice, right? You can see the target curve here in yellow. So it does some kind of EQing to the sound. So the problem now is the curve EQ takes a bit of CPU time, and this Balance 1 thing here also takes a lot of CPU for some reason on my PC. And you can see here also DSP meter is very high. So also I want to share this project with my Patreons, right? So the problem is they probably don't have Balance 1 and Curve EQ and so on. So what I can do now is I can take Spectrum Thief here and just record the sound in front of the curve EQ, right? So I just go in here, let this play and say, this is my source. You can see here it's recording. Very important to know for this matcher here is that it doesn't take the average curve. I think it's the maximum peak value of each of these spectrum bins here. So it's not really made for matching one track to another track, the EQ curve of one track to another track, because there you want to use the average. Here it's maximum peak value. So we have here something is probably okay, and then you can stop the recording, and then you just drag this after the curve EQ here and balance 1, and then you say this is my target curve. And you can see in blue here my target, and also in white you can see the difference between the source and the target. So it takes away a lot of low end. So what I'm seeing here is basically what balance 1 and the curve EQ is doing in just one EQ curve. So it settles down, it doesn't move anymore, so you can stop recording. And now I can disable curve EQ and balance EQ, and then enable this here by Audition IR. So it's more or less the same. Right? And with this, we have now here also here the smoothing. As you can see, it copies very much every small little bin, so it's a very high resolution. So what I do most of the times is I increase here the smoothing to get rid of all these small little individual frequency bins and just have it more like a smooth response and a very smoothed out EQ curve. What we also can do here is we can remove the low end, right? So please don't EQ the low end, or please don't EQ the top end, right? So you can narrow this down to a certain frequency range if you want to. And you can hear in the background every time I change this here some kind of crackling, right? That's because it more or less rewrites in the background the IR sample here. You can see this is just a wave sample. So this is the wave sample he can save as an IR sample. So we can do this here, export, right? And I export this to, I don't know, let's say track example 1 maybe. Save this here. And now I have a WAV file on my hard drive. And what I can do here, let me see. So actually, this one here, track example, right? So I have the sample here. And now I disable this and I use my convolution reverb. And I put this here into the convolution reverb. Mix all the way up, wet gain all the way up, and have the same effect. So with this I can more or less remove the spectrum thief, I can remove balance 1, I can remove curve EQ and just use here my convolution reverb, export this whole project and can send it over to my Patreons. And they don't need to have all these plugins installed on their system. So this is sometimes how I use it, or how I used it in the last week. I have to make some more experiments if this actually is viable or if there's actually some problems with this, but so far I found no problems. And you don't need to export here the IR sample, right? You can just leave Spectrum Thief on it and let auditioning IR on, and then you can save it with the project, and next time you reload the project it's still there, right? There's also here something like unity gain or normalize. So when you switch it to Spectrum, you can see when you hit unity, sometimes you can go over 0 dB with the sample. So normalizing this brings it down. and it makes everything a bit quieter. Okay, another example is here I have some kind of, let's say I have a synthesized snare drum, and sometimes I'm really obsessed with cloning snare sounds for some reason. I like a snare from some track and I really like the snare, and I want to have something that sounds exactly the same. So I have here the snare generator, just some noise samples, right, this one. And it sounds very synthesized, so it's missing some kind of shape, some tone. And let's say I have here some kind of sample and I use a snare sample I like. There's a snare top. Let me see if I've found something. So something like this. And I put this here on a track and maybe loop this. And we go here with a thief on it. And we say this is our target sound here. And it really just tries to get all these small little nuances here from the snare. Everything also in the top end, right? All these small little bins and frequency changes. So it's a very complex EQ here at the moment. So, and I just put this then on my snare here. Just remove this for a moment, or maybe let's just leave it in and mute it. And here I do a snare. Oh, I have recording on. Shit. Let's put it back here. Remove it and do the same thing. That's enough. And then put it here on this one. And record the source. And you can see there's many differences here, right? So yeah, it's a synthesized snare, but it's kind of in the same, it's a clappy, rim shoddy kind of snare sound. So let's put on here Audition IR. It sounds like this. And the reason why it sounds like this is that we have here in the attack phase of this snare sound a lot of different peaks or frequency peaks than we have in the tail. But because this is kind of a max peak thing, it remembers all the frequencies from all the positions inside of this sample. So we have this kind of metallic kind of sound. So what I do then is I, let's say here, export this and say DMB snare EQ, let's say 3, save. And I can remove here the spectrum thief again. EQ, is it this here? I can't remember. It's probably this. So let's use a convolution thing here. All the way up, this all the way up. It sounds like this, but we can now use here a modulator and just put the EQ stuff here on the attack. So with this, I get basically the EQ stuff only on the attack phase, on the attack part. And the tail of the snare here is more or less my old snare, or the white noise I'm using here with the samples. But I get a kind of a sense or some kind of tonality. Or maybe it's better, instead of using this ADSR here, to use segments. So with this we can shape this a bit. Let's disable smoothing here. Use seconds, no looping. And you can say only, you know, have here full time in the beginning. You can shape this a bit better. So this is with, this is without. And I also use this for hi-hats and percussion sounds and so on. So it's very cool to just clone these kind of snare sounds or snare EQing differences and then put this on your synthesized stuff, and you can generate snares from that, and you can of course modify in this all kinds of directions. So it's also sounds different when you put different sounds into it, right? If you change this here for maybe something different, snare 4, I don't know how this sounds. This doesn't match anymore, but if you have something that's more like, oh, maybe I exchange this for, is there actually a clap? V1 clap from Bitwig. Yeah, like I said, you can shape then these synthesized sounds more into the right EQ curve positions, or you get the right sounds out of it, the right tonality out of it. So this is how I use it at the moment. I use it for snare sounds, percussion sounds, and hi-hats, and also just cloning an EQ curve inside of a track where I have sometimes I have 4 or 5 EQs on a track, and then I just want to reduce it, right? I want to consolidate more or less everything into just one device, and then I have here an IR sample instead of 5 EQs or something like this. So that's how I use it at the moment, at least. So I want to show you this. Like I said, I put you the link in the description below if you want to try it out. It's free. Just try it out and have some fun. Maybe you come up with some better ideas. It's more, the intention is basically to clone amplifiers, but you can clone everything more or less. That's it. Thanks for watching. Leave a like, leave a subscription. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. 20 days. Only 20 days left until Bitwig 6. Nice. Bye.